Two U.S. Navy aircraft from the USS Nimitz, a Seahawk helicopter and an FA-18 Super Hornet fighter jet, crashed during separate routine operations over the South China Sea on Sunday, with all 5 crew members rescued and in stable condition as the Navy investigates both incidents. The Navy said on social media Sunday evening that an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter assigned to the Battle Cats of Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron HSM-73 went down around 2:45 p.m. local time while conducting routine operations from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. Search and rescue crews rescued 3 crew members, the Navy said. Roughly 30 minutes after the helicopter incident, an FA-18F Super Hornet from the Nimitz, assigned to the fighting Redcocks of Strike Fighter Squadron 22, also went down in the South China Sea during flight operations. Around 3:15 p.m., an FA-18F Super Hornet fighter assigned to the fighting Redcocks of Strike Fighter Squadron VFA 22 also went down while conducting routine operations from Nimitz. Both crew members successfully ejected and were safely recovered. The causes of both incidents remain under investigation, and the Navy has not released additional details about weather conditions, possible mechanical issues, or the nature of the training missions being conducted at the time of the crashes. While investigators work to determine what led to the 2 mishaps, operations aboard the USS Nimitz have continued as the carrier remains deployed in the Indo-Pacific region. The crashes come after the Navy lost 2 Super Hornet jets in the Red Sea this spring. An individual FA-18 fighter jet cost more than $60 million, according to the Navy. The Nimitz, the Navy's oldest active aircraft carrier, is serving as the centerpiece of Carrier Strike Group 11, which routinely conducts freedom of navigation and maritime security operations in the South China Sea, waters that have become increasingly contested amid rising tensions between the U.S. and China. The incidents come as the Nimitz undertakes its final deployment, capping more than 50 years of service since its commissioning in 1975. The USS Nimitz, one of the largest warships in the world, is the oldest U.S. aircraft carrier in service and will be retired next year. Bracketed by China and several Southeast Asian nations, parts of the vital South China Sea are claimed by multiple governments, but Beijing asserts ownership over almost all of the strategic waterway in defiance of an international court ruling. Over the last 2 decades, China has fortified its territorial claims by constructing military installations across the sea, directly challenging U.S. efforts to maintain free passage through the international waterway. U.S. Navy operations are also part of Washington's broader strategy to counter Beijing's maritime expansion. The aircraft crashes come amid President Donald Trump's diplomacy tour in Asia, where he's expected to meet with Chinese leader Xi Jinping this week for talks focused primarily on trade. Relations between the 2 nations had soured in recent weeks after both slapped sweeping measures on the other following months of relative calm. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Sunday that the U.S. has reached a framework trade agreement with China, easing tensions before the highly anticipated meeting between Trump and Xi. Throughout the years, the United States continued to upgrade Philippine military capabilities, particularly in maritime security and readiness for high-end operations against China's aggression in the West Philippine Sea and the greater South China Sea.
With the ongoing threats brought by China not just in the South China Sea, but rather in the greater Indo-Pacific region, the United States, the Philippines, and Japan continue to strengthen their alliance to counter Chinese aggression. The combined armed and defense forces of Japan, the Philippines, and the United States conducted a multilateral maritime cooperative activity within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, demonstrating a collective commitment to strengthen regional and international cooperation in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific. These combined maritime capabilities build upon previous multilateral maritime cooperative activities and their continuous operations together, which strengthen the interoperability of their armed and defense forces' doctrines, tactics, techniques, and procedures. MCAs are conducted in a manner consistent with international law and with due regard to the safety, navigational rights, and freedoms of all nations. These continuous engagements underscore the sustained commitment of the three nations to enhancing maritime cooperation, promoting regional security, and supporting a rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific. China sternly warns the Philippine side to immediately stop provoking incidents and escalating tensions in the South China Sea, as well as bringing in external forces for backing such efforts that are destined to be futile. The warning underscored the deepening rift between Manila and Beijing, particularly over Scarborough Shoal, known locally as Bajo de Masinloc or Panatag Shoal. The triangular atoll, long used by Filipino fishermen, was seized by Chinese vessels in 2012, following a tense standoff with the Philippine Navy. Since then, China has maintained de facto control of the area, even as it lies well within the Philippines' 200 nautical mile EEZ under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Amid escalating tensions, Washington reaffirmed its defense commitments. On September 12th, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned Beijing's latest moves. The United States and the Philippines are bound by the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty, which obliges both nations to come to each other's aid in case of an armed attack in the Pacific, including the South China Sea. In recent years, Washington has repeatedly clarified that any attack on Philippine forces or vessels in the West Philippine Sea would trigger the treaty. Japan, while constitutionally limited in its use of military force, has nonetheless stepped up its cooperation with Manila. In July this year, Tokyo and Manila signed a reciprocal access agreement, allowing Japanese troops to join joint training exercises in Philippine territory and vice versa. While the geopolitical maneuvering plays out, those most directly affected are Filipino fishermen who rely on Scarborough Shoal. For decades, the lagoon provided abundant catches of fish, making it a vital economic lifeline for coastal communities in Zambales and Pangasinan. China's plan to declare the shoal a marine reserve has alarmed local fishermen, who fear it could further restrict their access. For the Philippine government, the reserve is seen less as an environmental measure and more as a pretext for asserting sovereignty.